11 years ago, I got to watch Fraternity's debut at MFF from the crowd. I missed the finals that year. Boy, do I have a lot to say. Hi guys, it's Mex. I hope your FWA weekend was good, whether you went or not. So, I asked my patrons what they'd rather hear me talk about for this video, and this was the selection. So FWA just came and went, and while normally a con weekend is a blur for me with a lot of random stuff that I can't remember by the end of it, this one was different since it was the home of possibly the biggest milestone on my journey as a dancer in the furry fandom, as well as just an all-around fun time. Let's dive in. Okay, so let's talk about the controversy that came up as soon as I started scripting this video. I will not dwell on this long as it is irrelevant to the core focus of the video, but I know I'm going to get a bunch of people in the comments talking about it, so let's just go ahead and address it now. 3 or 4 people at FWA wearing tactical gear gave a replica to one of the Bon Voyage cosplayers to pose with for photos while pointing it at attendees from atop the Pulse Loft, all of whom have claimed they were given the okay by FWA itself to do this as long as the had an orange ribbon so it could be identified as a prop. There's also another person who made a post on enter social media here, I don't have it handy while writing this, saying the staff had told them it was approved when they addressed it with them despite multiple complaints, and brushing it off like it was a non-issue. I like to keep things relatively tame in here, so we're not going to give this too much attention. But for the record, no, I did not see this. I did not know about it until Tuesday after the con, and just to make my stance clear, anyone who brings a replica weapon with tactical gear and points it at a crowd has zero justifiable reasons other than to stir a panic and make a statement of support for mass tragedies. Personally, I don't think the Bon Voyage cosplayer is really acting with malicious intent here, given his in-character demeanor in the video. Just a bad judgment call on their part. A really, really, really bad judgment call. This is like cosplay 101. You don't do this. But as for the guys in tactical gear that gave them the replica weapon, yeah, what's the real fetish gear here, guys? Just saying. So while I was editing my voiceover to this, I find out about the finger incident. So the finger incident is basically, if you didn't know, somebody popped Molly, was having a bad reaction to it, was breaking teeth, and then some random person shoved a rag in their mouth to try to keep them from breaking their teeth, and they bit through the rag and bit off the tip of somebody's finger. The finger does have to be amputated, at least the tip of it has to be amputated. So yes, I'm aware of this. I'm going to link to the victim GoFundMe in the description just because, you know, I'm not going to mention that without at least trying to help out in any way I can. So that will be in the description. All I say is if you're going to use substances, keep near people you trust, preferably sober people you trust. They'll be able to watch you and make sure that you're not going to have a bad reaction to it, and then taking the proper precautions if you are having a bad reaction. I mean, not only does the person like lose their finger, but just imagine how the person who did it feels once they sobered up. You don't want to be that person. You don't want to live with that guilt the rest of your life. But somebody on Twitter, yeah, I have a burner account on Twitter only to obtain screenshots for videos like this. Somebody said that even though, no, this is not Rainforest 2.0, please stop calling it that, there are issues in the fandom that do need to be addressed, especially regarding casual substance abuse. It's definitely something we've got to talk about in the furry fandom. We've lost too many people to it. We as a fandom talk about all the benefits without actually understanding the risks and consequences involved. I'm just saying there's a lot to unpack here. This is probably going to be a long-form video. But as I say, rule of large numbers, there's going to be a couple of idiots, but unfortunately these idiots were a little bit wild this weekend. Also, thirdly, the fire was not set by the convention or anybody involved with the convention. There was a restaurant inside the hotel called Sear, and they had a grease fire in their kitchen which burned through into a linen closet, which was attached to the bathroom, which explains why there was so much smoke coming from the bathroom. So the FWA fire had nothing to do with us. All right, rant over. Let's talk about the actual FWA experience. Now, I'm kind of trying to talk about two things in this video, so bear with me if the structure here gets a little wacky. But let's first start with the con itself. How was FWA 2024? Excluding the COVID cancellations, I've attended FWA all but 2 years it's been run since 2015. It's been kind of an up and down con for me on a personal level. 2015, I overbooked myself. 2016, I was just kind of depressed. 2018 was amazing, but I had an immediate downswing after the con. 2019, I hardly remember. 2023 was probably the best con experience I've ever had. And 2024, okay, so MFF this past year, despite me still having a good time, was probably one of my bottom 10 con experiences. Apart from an amazing meme cosplay me and a couple friends did, it was just overwhelming. It was too much in terms of people and location. I stayed in the Aloft, which was over a half a mile walk from the con. Oftentimes I just couldn't find the energy to get back to the hotel. And even when I did get to the hotel, there were over 15,000 people here. It was way too crowded for my taste. Strangely enough though, FWA wasn't. Well, yeah, it was definitely packed. It felt like there was more space to interact and hang with people. Maybe with the exception of the atrium level. But consider that FWA only had 500 less people. That's pretty crazy, right? How could two cons with such similar numbers have such a stark difference? Now, I did tend to keep pretty busy this con, and I'm known, especially since COVID, to have massive pre-con social anxiety. Like, the day of arrival and I'm all over the place. Getting my stuff organized, I'm still nervous from travel anxiety. Now I'm in a room with people I don't see very much, or in some cases don't know. Yeah, just let me be for a little bit. And if I'm arriving after 6 p.m., I'm definitely cracking open a beer, I'm sorry. But yeah, this weekend I actually got attached in a way that I haven't in a hot minute. It was pretty hard to leave and shift gears back to normalcy. The vibe at this con was just fun, and most everyone seemed to be having a great time. I was also in the main hotel this year, rooming up with friends in a suite, so we definitely got our fair share of partying in. But it wasn't all just party in my room. We had the main area where there was music and dancing and drinks, and then we had the side I was sleeping in, which was quieter, safe space, and with less people. Having been to so many cons, I knew most of the people I was rooming with, so it was a good fun time. And finally, let's address the elevator in the room. Furry con elevator drama is a dime a dozen, but unlike MFF's main hotel where there's only 9 floors, FWA's Marriott has 47. So if you're above, say, floor 12, you are not going to want to stair climb even once throughout the weekend. Hell, I was on 9 and did it once after the Living Tombstone concert, and I felt like I ran a marathon by the time I reached my floor. I may be a weasel, but I'm not spry like I used to be, guys. So given I was on 9, and anyone who's been to FWA while it's been in this hotel likely knows about floor 10 being a bit of an open lounge area as a transfer point, since not all elevators service every floor. Floor 10, however, does, so that's why this is a transfer point. So I was able to pick the least crowded elevator line and just go down one set of spiral stairs to 9, and I was literally right next to my hotel room. I was lucky. I heard from others saying elevator lines were upwards of an hour. FWA did hire a third-party event management team to manage the elevators, but no less than twice I was told by the event management staff to go down to go up on an elevator. This is con etiquette 101. Don't do this, guys. Now, before we get to my major obligations at FWA, let's look at FWA as a con. They've had quite the history of ruffling feathers in the fandom with weird and controversial management choices, but the con itself? It's solid. It's not far from my home for one, so that's an obvious bias, but for those who are straddling the fence of deciding if they want to go to FWA, let's go ahead and format the video like this. I will give FWA 2024 a rating in a number of categories: venue, affordability, food access and variety, event management, panels and programming, crowd size, in-con accessibility, and registration. At the end, I'll give a total rating for each of these, and I'll also add a personal experience rating, which will just be a grade from my own FWA experience. If I missed something, I'm sorry, just bear with me here. Venue. I personally love the layout of the rooms, but on day 1, a ceiling tile fell in our bathroom, so we had to contact hotel staff to have that fixed. Note, it's downtown Atlanta. Don't go alone after dark. This ain't Anthrocon. The staff I encountered were very friendly. No major complaints of the venue itself other than the parking price. Even the garages and open lots nearby are a minimum of 20, sometimes even 30 a night, so be aware of this if you're driving to FWA on a budget. 4 stars here. Affordability. Not a lot of positives to say here, sadly. FWA is pricey, and that's no secret. Not like BLFC or anything, but definitely expensive. More so than both MFF and AC. The hotel prices are pretty average for a con, but FWA reg price is among the highest I've encountered of any con. I had my reg comped this year from last year's dance competition, but I did get a glance at the prices. Also, like I said, parking is very expensive. No convention specials here, unfortunately. The only plus side I can see is that since Atlanta is a major city, it's serviced by Southwest, and therefore airfare gets you more for your dollar, and it's likely on the cheaper end. I'm feeling 2 stars here. It's definitely one of the least affordable cons. Food access and variety. There is literally a mall food court attached to the hotel via Skybridge. There's restaurants within the block, and there's a Starbucks inside the hotel. The only downside I can see is if you're trying to get food overnight after the mall closes, especially Sunday, since you'd probably have to Uber it. But even then, you have a ton of quick options, and it's probably decently affordable to have delivered since most things are not far from the con. 5 stars here, no notes. This is the best food access of any con I've ever been to, and it has been that way. Event management. This is regarding the hired third-party staff and upper event management, not just the random volunteers, so disregard this if you were just regular staff from FWA. I mentioned before FWA has been grinding some gears in the fandom for a bit, with the out-of-fandom musicians being paid while in-fandom DJs play for free. By the way, shout out to Oro Alliance for coming in clutch here. The cards are stacked against a good score here. The event staffing that the con hired to help manage elevators was mostly ineffective, but at least they were trying. We're gonna give FWA from a managed standpoint 3 stars. Like, I get everyone's trying, but there are just some common sense things that need to be addressed. Panels and programming. This one I just threw in here because it's a con experience most share, but not me. I just attend the dance events, really. The only panel I attended this con was the bad fanfiction reading, and sadly couldn't stay for the whole thing because one of my roomies was locked out of our hotel room and I was the only one that responded. But for the shows I saw and was in, 5 stars, man. I mean, like, FWA added dress rehearsal to the dance competition in 2016, and that made an enormous difference. It has put on the best dance comp every year since. The Super Bowl of fursuit dancing, as my friend Max put it. Crowd size. Guys, if you are overwhelmed by crowds, this con might be a lot for you. I do not recommend FWA as a first con, as it can be a bit much. Maybe 10 years ago this wasn't the case, but it's not 2013 anymore, and these cons have over 15,000 people. However, it did feel a lot more controlled of a crowd this year, especially when compared to MFF. It's a lot, and if that's your thing, by all means you'll love this. I personally thought it had the big con feel with the medium-sized con vibe. 4 stars. In-con accessibility. What I mean by this is elevators, escalators, are the walkways between venues fursuit friendly, disability access, stuff like that. Well, I think the only thing that is massively working against FWA here are the elevators. Here's my critique. Close off the elevators on all event floors except the street level, cone them off like MFF does, add queue dividers, and have one staff member manage one set of elevators, total of 4 people max. Maybe even make that center elevator a designated 10th floor only elevator. This eliminates the guesswork people going to floor 10 have to do and shortens the line. This solves going up to go down, this solves overcrowding, and makes things move quicker for everyone. Everything else was perfect. Escalators worked all weekend, all con areas are accessible from indoors, and the walking is not excessive like at AC or MFF. Get the elevators fixed and we'd have a 5-star rating here, but for now, a strong 3. Registration. Take note, other cons, FWA has their shit together on Reg. Everything was streamlined, plenty of staff, and they were able to bust through a line of at least a dozen people every 2 minutes. 5 stars, fantastic Reg system. Now, as for my own personal experience, well, that's where today's story begins. So let's go back in time a bit to the early 2010s. The furry dance scene is nerdy, but growing. A lot of people who were involved in dance outside of the fandom saw this as a way to intertwine both of their hobbies. I vividly remember that MFF 2012 dance competition having something like 75 tryouts. I was not one of them that year despite tremendous pressure from a few dance comp regulars, but the dance competition scene back then was just starting to figure itself out in terms of coordination, presentation, and how to properly judge and critique its contestants.
This is a dance contest, not a crap contest.
However, the door was about to bust wide open on the dance competition scene for studio-trained and street-trained craft to get involved. And while there were a lot of people and factors involved in making this happen, there was no fur with as much of a profound impact on the dancer furs as Atsu Fox. Despite a couple of previous year performances where Atsu actually performed as a yellow bunny, Atsu made his debut performance as the fox we all know at AC 2012. The very performance that I've made very public pushed me to undertake dance as a craft. I went home, bought a mirror to practice in front of, and took tutorials. AC 2012 featured a dance workshop to teach different styles hosted by Last for One crew, the first ever dance battle event in Floor Wars, and from what I understand, might have been one of the most influential cons on the dancer furs. But just a few months later, Atsu and Akado did something that took the entire Dancer First scene to the next level.
This is what we're going to be seeing. This is the next level to dance competition, right here.
Kendi said it right. This is what we're going to be seeing. And right she was. Just 1 year later, Atsu Fox would bring out the real game changer.
Now listen.
This changed everything. Before this, a large amount of the dance scene in Furry was based more along the lines of the masquerade or the variety show. You know, performance first and dance second. Groups were rare, and even when they were around, they usually weren't intended to be competitive. The only exception to this is Kyo's groups from the European cons, but the EU cons tend to do their own thing in terms of the Dancer First scene. After this, a lot of folks started popping up who weren't dancers by trade or by practice, but birthed through direct inspiration from the fandom's performers like Atsu, JD Puppy, Mangusu, Quick, Ray Meerkat, etc. This is what I've heard coined as the beginning of the second generation. Dancers like Leon, Bimani, Hogwash, Aoi, and myself. Furternity went on to perform a few more times at AC 2014, FWA 2015 as a showcase, and MFF 2015. But their legacy lived on, birthing a ton of different group efforts and really kicking off the viability of groups in a fursuit dance context. And over the years, things grew, things evolved, and younger folks started coming in having watched Furternity as teens or even as kids. So when I heard Atsu wanted to reform Furternity, I knew it was going to be a big deal among those people. I was actually brainstorming bringing back Play, Pause, Rewind around this time, but I couldn't find the drive to write a ton of choreography. So eventually I settled on the idea that Furternity would debut and I just wouldn't compete in group. That was until the end of March. Atsu and I had previously worked together on a group, and I'm still very proud of that performance. Atsu, having had a member drop from being able to attend FWA, asked if I'd like to be a part of the return, saying he'd been wanting to ask people he'd previously worked well with before asking anyone else. I mean, can you really say no to that? Ultimately, I didn't give an immediate yes, though. I mean, guys, as you can tell, I'm super focused on YouTube right now, and it's hard to get me to do anything else. Funnily enough, I talked to my mom, and she convinced me to do it. She asked me, if you don't do it, and you end up watching them do it, would you regret saying no? To which the answer was an immediate yes. So that's how I wound up in the comeback performance at FWA 2024. And at first, it didn't really sink in. Like, cool, I'll learn some choreo as I have time, but I honestly feared that I'd not be able to put in the passion I knew I would have had back in 2015 or 2016. Now, as for the experience, just know that group work, as I've stated before, requires a ton of work. And we did not want to do a ton of work in person if we could help it, so we as a collective group had to learn all 4 parts of the choreo before the con to make things easier, and that way we could just do formations and blocking and stuff like that and just put it all together and make sure it looks good. I learned Kendi's set first. It wasn't too challenging since it was at a slower tempo than the others. Atsu's was arguably the hardest to learn, period, and had a ton of fast counts. Took me a few hours. Then Bimani's I did third, and it was probably my favorite to learn just because it looked so smooth when I got good at it. Then JD's I learned last as I needed gym space with how much ground it covered on stage. What I learned about this group really fast was just how communicative everyone was. When you asked a question, you'd get an answer pretty fast. And if you were struggling with something, the group would lend a paw wherever they could.
It's kind of like a jump into it, kind of like a jump, bounce, slide.
It sunk in as soon as I saw the shirts. Like, holy shit, this group had such a profound impact on the dance aspect of our fandom. I got to watch the debut performance, and now I get to be in it. That's a pretty incredible feeling, I can tell you. Honestly though, while it's easy to get caught up in that, I spent more time worrying about my own learning and making sure I show up to the con proving I know the choreo and deserve to be there. Now, as for group performances, I always say give yourself several months to write choreo and then practice it if you aren't going to see each other until the con. For 6 people though, that's a tall ask to not have any in-person practice time until the con. And that's what happened. Apart from a brief meeting JD had with Kendi in December at a con, none of us had a chance to practice with each other for formation blocking until late Thursday night of the con. This is when we realized the stage was going to be quite small, like 8 feet or so smaller than last year, which meant we had to change a few formations just because it's going to be hard to fit 6 people side to side on that stage. It was quite stressful if I can be honest, but we got it to work. The next morning, since JD had a pretty full schedule with staffing, we agreed to get up at the foreign hour of 5:30 a.m. to practice at 6, since the next time we would be able to see each other was in the prelims room. Yep, an early morning practice session, and it was quite rough, but absolutely paramount to getting the choreo cleaned up. Worth it, I'd say, since it essentially freed us up for most of the remainder of the day to do whatever outside of prelims. After prelims, we did a little photo shoot in one of the office rooms of the Hyatt with the banner JD had made pre-con, and where we all got to get pictures with our fraternity shirts as a group. Later that night, the roster went up, and my heart fluttered upon seeing us listed as closing act. I mean, the only downside is now during the show, we have to wait 31 acts before we go up for ours. Oh god. Then Saturday morning, we had another short practice at 8 to clean up some of the errors from prelims. And I just noticed how well we all vibed as a group.
Was that the bite of 87?
Then Battle Zoo. Look, there's so much to talk about in terms of this event. If I even tried to summarize it all, we'd be here an hour. So let me just focus on a few things. First, the format this year was Group Project, where 2 random finalists would be paired up. Those 2 would go out and battle against other pairs in a tournament-style bracket until it's narrowed down to a winning team. I was paired up with Eve. Oh dear. Our round was Fritz and Jamage versus me and Eve, which ended in a tie at first, so the tiebreakers for this round were settled with some really abstract non-music. One of them was the moon landing, and another was cafeteria noises. It was such a wild idea that worked so well for the show and made for some endlessly memorable moments. We ended up getting eliminated this round, though, but the eventual winners, Scribe, aka Atsu, and Kendi, were just so OP, given that they frequently work together and have such incredible chemistry. And honestly, they won the thing based solely on that chemistry in conjunction with their creativity. They had the best group project. Also, shout out to my stream regular Boomsday Wonder for Cypher Champion. Seriously though, go watch this event as soon as there's a YouTube video. It was amazing. Anyways, so Sunday was the day of the competition, and as I wake up and check my phone, we got a problem. JD messaged the group to let us know his shirt was missing, and he didn't remember seeing it since we were in the office room in the other hotel the other day for the photo shoot. Dance comp was in 5.5 hours, so we were hoping it would turn up. We got together and went to the breakfast cafe down the street and talked for a bit while we waited for 10 a.m. to come around so we could hit up Con Ops and ask if it had been turned in. JD's kind of like teasing himself, and we're kind of like teasing him back, like, oh my god, how could you forget your shirt, man? We had a couple of contingency plans, but first we were going to go to Lost and Found and see if it had been turned in. Sadly, no, it had not. So my brain went immediately to those alternate solutions. One of them was same-day shirt printing. but all the shops were hard to reach and there was no guarantee that anything would be done that day. We also had the idea of asking anyone in the vendor hall if they had a shirt press or the ability to do an iron-on at con, to which we also got a no. This is where my experience of working at Walgreens came in handy. Walgreens has same-day peel and stick posters in their photo department. Why don't we try that? I mean, worth a shot, right? I had JD help with the measurements and drove out with JD's partner Dante to pick it up and was back right in time for dress rehearsal at 11 a.m. Maybe we were like, I think they were on the 5th competitor and we were act 32. So we came back with like ample time till we were supposed to go out. Dante did the work to secure the posters on either side of the shirt and the results were pretty damn good considering the rush job, and it held together the entire performance. Now, as for the performance, I knew what this would mean to a lot of people and was so excited to be a part of it. We ended up getting 3rd place. And while there was a little controversy in chat and a few Telegram channels about us getting 3rd, we did have a few sync issues. But honestly, can I just have this moment, please? I'm just glad I got to be a part of this. Oh, and this also finishes my FWA medal collection. And post-con, it's all good vibes. We all enjoyed the experience. We did get our scores and we're very happy with them. And we just all feel so blessed to have been a part of this. With all that, I give FWA 2024 from a personal experience standpoint 4 LOMs out of 5. Top 10 con for me. Moral of the story is, chase your dreams and don't brandish replica weapons at cons. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please take the time to like, comment, share, and subscribe because it really helps the algorithm, and which in turn helps me, which in turn could lead to videos more often. An even faster way to help me would be to subscribe to my Patreon, where all paid members get to see these videos 24 to 48 hours early. But as I mentioned, it's never expected, always appreciated. New video essay soon, and it's gonna be a big boy, so stay tuned for that. But until next time, take it easy.